Welcome to Clicks and Bricks Podcast. We talk about the entrepreneur mindset.
If you get one shot at this, what kind of shot are you going to take?
If we forget who we are, they're going to forget who you are.
You've got an adversity story that's out of this world.
Everything from that Main Street brick and mortar to that billion-dollar manufacturer.
Welcome back to Clicks and Bricks. Today, I'm talking with Jen Garrett. She is an author. She's a military officer. She's got a podcast called Move the Ball, and she's also a branding expert. How are you doing today, Jen?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me on, Ken.
Thank you for joining us. You've got quite a long resume. And before we get into what you're currently doing and your recent book release, I think it's, we're recording in October, but your book's coming out in November, correct?
Correct. Yep.
Awesome. Before we get into the details on all of that stuff, can you just tell us a little bit about you and your history?
Yeah. So Jen Garrett, pleasure again to be here. So my background is I thought that I was going to be in corporate for like my entire career. My goal was to climb the corporate ladder in big companies, become a Fortune 500 CEO, or be in the C-suite. And I was on that path. I was blessed to have great opportunities to advance in the corporate space. And then something happened that kind of changed all that. And I know we'll get into that. But my background, I have 7 degrees. So I went to school for a long time, a little bit crazy, but not drowning in student debt. So that is an important thing to highlight. I was fortunate to have employers fully pay for 4 of my 7 degrees. So I'm very grateful for that. But yes, I always thought that I was going to be a corporate person. I started my career in engineering, did a lot of technical work, and then got an MBA, got a JD. So I'm a lawyer as well, and crossed over to the commercial side, putting together commercial deals to the tune of multi-billion-dollar deals. So I was working on some pretty big stuff in Fortune 50 companies.
Wow, that is impressive. Did you say 4 degrees?
4 paid for, 7 total.
7 total. Wow. I accomplished 1. And it's not even a bachelor's. So congratulations on that. That is very, very impressive. So we talked a little bit before we started recording about your history and your transition. You were working for a Fortune 50 company and decided to leave that comfort. And Fortune 50 company has to come with some really great benefits, a great paycheck, retirement, all of those things. And you made the decision to leave that comfort to start your own business. Can you tell us a little bit about why you made that decision?
Yeah, it was one of the toughest decisions I ever made. But there was a point that kind of put me on that path. I feel like when you talk to a lot of entrepreneurs, there was some event that kind of made them go in that direction if they didn't start that way already. And for me, I loved being in Fortune 50 companies. I worked in multiple ones. I was always one of those employees that felt like they were valued by their leadership, had opportunity to grow and all that. So life was good. Until in 2016, I got a phone call that changed all of that. And so basically it's November 2016. I'm living in Grand Rapids, Michigan at the time. And my phone rings. It's my mom calling me. I'm sitting at my dining room table. I'm like, you know what? I'm too busy. I'll call her back later. That phone call was the call she was letting me know my dad had passed away. Very unexpectedly, no warning. So it was unforeseen. And 2 things I learned when my dad passed away. 1, you really are replaceable in corporate. And people had always said that, but I was like, I always get good performance reviews. Like, not me, that doesn't apply. And the second thing that I realized was the world keeps moving, whether you're in it or not. And so all of these things I had been building on my resume, the 7 degrees or the multi-billion-dollar transactions, all that's great on that piece of paper. But when it's my time to go, who's going to care about that? Nobody, right? So I really started thinking about what's the legacy that I want to leave behind for when I'm gone. And so I started thinking about my Move the Ball movement. It started with a book called Move the Ball, and it's evolved into a whole movement. We've got the podcast and other things. And that movement was all about helping people to move forward each and every day, just a little bit, an inch, a foot, a yard, just keep progressing forward no matter what happens on a day-to-day basis. People started posting on social media about how they had moved the ball that day, and they would hashtag move the ball. And I was like, wait a minute, this is a thing that people are getting behind. And so I was like, that's the thing. That's the legacy. Because people would always call me and be like, hey, Jen, I heard someone say move the ball today and I thought of you. right? So it kind of became synonymous with me and my brand. And so I said, okay, one day I'm going to leave my corporate job behind to go focus on this movement and growing that full time.
That is a really cool story. So you did that. You started to move the ball in 2016. When did you make the decision to leave corporate America?
Yeah, so Move the Ball, the book, if I can just show it, was released in 2013. So I had been building up on social media and growing and stuff since then. I decided to leave corporate America in 2019. So November 5th, 2019, which would have been my dad's birthday, by the way. So best time to leave. But why I didn't leave right away was I was, again, comfortable in my corporate career, and I was like, at some point, I didn't know when, but at some point I was going to leave. Then the last corporate job I had was very, very stressful. Great people I got to work with, loved the role, but the environment was so chaotic. I was just getting burnt out. I was having health issues, and I was like, oh, no job is worth this. In my 20s, yeah, I would have just pushed through and, but after my dad passed, I was like, not worth it. I'm going to leave. I was under a corporate relocation agreement, so I had to stay until March of 2019. And I thought, great, that will give me the time to prepare and to learn and to do things that I needed to so that I'm not just jumping, right? I also have 5 kids, single parent. With 5 kids, it's a big decision to leave your good paying, comfortable job with good benefits to go all in on your business, right? So I wanted to give myself some time. Okay, so now March 2019 came, and I wasn't ready. I was like, no, not yet, right? And so I wanted to have a date with impact. My birthday is on June 29th. So I wanted the day that I left to be a 29. April 29th was going to be the day. That came and went. Oh, I'll do it in May. May 29th came and went. I wasn't going to leave on my birthday. So July 29th. And a friend of mine was like, you just need to do this, just jump. And I was like, it's hard when you have a family to make that jump. And so November 5th, which would have been my dad's birthday, is when I made the jump. So not a 29, but it was the best date I could have done just from the significance of this whole thing starting because of my dad's passing.
Sorry to hear about your father.
Thank you.
I'm glad that you use that for positivity in your future growth. On these times, month after month after month, you're making a decision, you're saying you're going to do it, and something's clicking in your brain that you're not ready, and you don't pull the trigger. And I think that is such a common thing that happens, right? Unfortunately,
yes.
For some people, it's too late by the time they do it, right? So was there something else at play, or was it just 100% your father and this nagging yourself, I got to do it? Was that just self-talk to get you to the point to where you were comfortable, or was there some other catalyst that happened in that November to really push it over the fence to make you finally make that decision? Because you've been thinking about it now for months, right? Or not even
right.
Making the plan and then pushing it multiple times, right? So, and
right.
I'm not, giving you a hard time here, because I think we all have done that, right? It's something in our life.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for me, I think what it was there was no catastrophic event or some moment. It was more like I was just so unhappy in my job because I was just so tired and I was sacrificing so much for my family because I was always working, that I was like, I just cannot do this anymore. So it was kind of a forcing function to be like, you need to just go, right? There's never going to be the right time to go. We can always make excuses as to why we're not ready or why something else. And so at some point you just have to say, okay, you know what? I'm drawing a line in the sand. Enough is enough. And here I go.
Absolutely. Starting a business is kind of like having children. You're never ready, right? Because you don't know what you don't know. And life is going to unfold in front of you, and you get to figure those things out as you go. And I think for me, that's the beauty of owning a business, is I never really know what I'm walking into every day. I've got some great ideas, but the amount of variables that we have to deal with on a daily basis is astronomical. So congratulations. Was there something in you that gave you I know that you had the fear side, but was there something in you that gave you the confidence to say, I can do this? And when you pulled that trigger, or what techniques do you have to help not only build your confidence in making that decision, but then to maintain your confidence when things don't seem like they're going to be going the way you want them to go?
Great question. I think for one, just remembering your purpose, like why did you decide to do this to begin with, right? And so staying connected to that purpose is going to help you go through the trials and tribulations and the curves and the twists and the turns that life throws at you. You know, when I left, I was like, look, I've worked in multiple Fortune 50 companies. I have a JD, I have an MBA. Like I know how to run a business. So I felt like I was equipped from all the business school, you know, stuff like that. But there's still those that are on the road to entrepreneurship, you know, like you can have a plan. You need to have a plan, like put together a plan, but recognize that thing is going to change so many times, but you should have an initial plan. And then you just continue to measure your progress against it. You pivot, you adapt as you need to. I mean, for me, I left November 2019. What happened in February, March 2020? The pandemic, right? So everyone's world got turned upside down. I thought when I left, I was really going to focus on business consulting. And I had companies that I had started talking to, including my former employer, that were like, yeah, Jen, we know you can help us. And so let's talk. So we're having conversations about that. Pandemic hits. Nobody's looking at hiring consultants unless you can help them keep their employees safe, right? Transition to a remote environment, help them keep their doors open, not, oh, just general business consulting or, I was not a need to have, I was a want to have, in terms of the capabilities that I can provide. So I had to pivot because my customers were no longer existent, right? They were focused on other things. So I shifted my business from business consulting to working with individuals in terms of their brand and how do they position their brand to be able to attract the opportunities they want. Most of those people were job seekers. How do you, most people were senior in their career, mid-level to senior level, how do you take all your great experience and package it in a way that helps you get that next role and set yourself apart from the competition? But I had to adapt because the market environment required me to adapt. I mean, I could continue to chase companies and say, hey, I can consult, but the effort would be, wasted effort because no one's looking for that. So as an entrepreneur, you always have to be mindful of the market landscape. And then you have to pivot and adjust your offerings or your products, as the market changes.
Absolutely. We didn't talk about this prior to jumping in, but as you're exiting a Fortune 50,
Mm-hmm.
I've talked to a lot of people that have made that, that transition from, the Fortune 1000 and up, or even some medium-sized businesses. Were you able to negotiate an exit that had some financial incentive attached to it?
I did. So I did have a couple months of financial incentive, and that's always a good thing to be able to do if you're in a position to be able to do that.
Right. And for the audience, if you don't, that's basically a severance package, right? And when you're setting up, especially if you're at a big company, they know that their employees are their biggest asset, and the tribal knowledge that you carry through their company is basically non-replaceable. So you can set up a deal with the previous employer to be really your first consulting client to say, hey, for 6 months, I'll be available for you for this rate, but I'm not working there. And that's I think a phenomenal way to help fund or at least ease some of the stress of those first couple of months, because I'm sure on day one, you had customers just lined up in November before the pandemic happened, right?
Of course. Right. No, that was a joke. Yeah. No, it's very difficult to when you're first starting out. I mean, to the extent that you can negotiate a deal, like you said, to have some stream of income for some scope of work, that's always helpful as you're continuing to build your business, because it isn't a light switch where you can just leave one employer and then, unless you've been working on this side hustle for a long time, right, and you have a pipeline of customers, which I had not been doing, then it takes a little bit of time to get your business up and running and to bring in those customers.
Absolutely. So if you're in that boat and you're thinking about leaving your corporate job, once you're ready to make that move, don't be afraid to talk to your employer. And let them know what you're doing. One, you might find that you're a breach of your current contract and you might not want to make that move yet. But two, it could be a huge financial opportunity for you to help you get your business started. So I think that's really, really cool. So
I guess I would just say too, like, I feel people don't want to tell their employer because they're apprehensive. But if you're planning on leaving anyway, you're in no worse of a position by having that conversation, unless you have an adversarial relationship with your employer. That's a little bit different, right? But if you're on good terms with it, why not let them know what you're looking to do and see if there's an opportunity for you guys to work together or for you to provide some value.
Absolutely. As long as you're not competing with them, there's
Right.
probably some synergies that you can continue to provide them. I mean, at the end of the day, your job is your clients, right? If you have
Yes.
a W-2, maybe you don't have as many clients, but I look at it being an employee as, my employer is my client and I want to make them happy. And that's how I can make more money.
Right.
As an employer, I look at my employees as my clients and I need more of them so that we can grow the business, right? So
Yes.
it's a mutually beneficial environment, hopefully, right? So
Absolutely.
I think that's great. You've got the book Move the Ball, but you've got another book coming out November 11th of 22. Is that correct?
Yep.
And this episode is going to air after that. But can you tell us about the new book that's at the time of this have already been released?
Sure. Yeah. The new book is called Dominate the Game: How Life Changes When You Show Up. And it's all about how you suit up and show up to life so that you can move the ball. I use those phrases intentionally because the book is structured in 3 parts. There's a suit up section, which was all about how do you suit up, not only from a mental standpoint and a mindset perspective, but also from a preparation standpoint to get you more efficient and productive each week. Then there's a show up, which is all about how you show up to really go after the things that you want. It's not just about moving the ball an inch or a foot or a yard. It's like, let's dominate and really go after the big things. And how you do that is by showing up the right way. And when you suit up and you show up the right way, you will move the ball. So the book is structured in those 3 parts. There's a lot of tie into the Move the Ball book because a lot of people have been familiar with those concepts. And so, yeah, that was really the reason for wanting to write a book, is to build upon the foundation that Move the Ball provided people and just giving them some new concepts, more advanced level stuff to help them to be more productive, to show up in a way that really allows them to be successful, not only in business, but also in all aspects of your life. And also, it's not about the hustle and the grind and wear yourself to the point of exhaustion. It's like, how do you show up in a way that makes you productive, but also allows you time to maintain the relationships that you want, your family, your friends, whatever, so that you have that balance and you don't feel like you're just worn out all the time.
Right. Now, suiting up, getting dressed in the morning, getting ready for work, brushing your teeth, taking your shower, going to work, right? That's what I think most people would think of when you say suiting up. But and obviously I haven't read the book because it's not out yet. Can you tell us more about what you mean when you say suit up? Because I think it's more than just throwing on a shirt and a jacket.
Absolutely. Yeah. So first it starts off with clarity, understanding, what are your goals? What are your priorities? What are the things that are important to you? So there's a chapter in the book called What Color is Your Jersey? And so it's really about so all of these things have sports references and little cliches and stuff. So it's about, understanding what jersey am I wearing, right? What are my goals? What's important to me? So there's that piece of it. There's also the habits that you put into practice. So there's a chapter in the book called Ditch Those Old Habits in the Locker Room. Again, sports references, but it's all about examining what habits do I have in place today that are serving me, what habits are not, and to get to where I want to go tomorrow, what changes, what shifts do I need to make? Because the habits that we have today have gotten us to where we are today, but they're not necessarily the same ones that we need for tomorrow, right? So that's another piece of it. There's a mindset piece because that's also important, but there's these other elements. It's not just about the mindset and having a positive outlook and gratitude. Those are all important, don't get me wrong, but there's other components to that as well.
Absolutely. I think it's so important to know what you're going after, knowing what jersey you're wearing. As leaders, I think frequently, and I ask this question to my wife a lot because I have employees, but I also teach children, like a lot of times, like, what's my role here? Because I don't know. And I really have to take time to sit and say, what is my role in this particular position with an employee or one of my students? Doesn't really matter. So, and I think it's important to know, and you're saying that you use the jersey, what color is my jersey, to know what is my role? What am I working for? What am I trying to accomplish? And if you don't know what you're trying to accomplish, then you probably won't accomplish anything
exactly
what you want, right? So I think that's really, really cool. And so if you suit up, and you show up, I assume that's more than just walking in the door.
Yeah, absolutely. So, first of all, it's about your role, right? Understanding what your assignment is, and then making sure that all the things that you do, all the actions you take are in alignment with that assignment. So often we get busy each day doing a lot of things, but are those things the right things? Are you showing up and working on the right things that you should be doing to be able to accomplish the things that are important to you? And so how do you maintain that balance and make sure that you're prioritizing effectively, that kind of a thing? There's also, how do you tackle procrastination? So I give steps in there for ways that you can do that, because we tend to procrastinate the things that we don't like doing or that are uncomfortable, right? Or that we view as drudgery. So how do you, but a lot of those things still have to get done. So how do you tackle that procrastination and make sure that you're still showing up and moving the ball forward? And so those are some of the things that we talk about in the show up section.
Awesome. I have a list of core values that I read my students every single day when I'm teaching. And one of those core values is show up with positivity or don't show up at all. And it didn't used to say that. It used to say just show up with positivity. Do you feel like when people are showing up to work and they're bringing negative energy, that is viral, or if they show up with positive energy, that's viral for the rest of the community?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, your energy is contagious. And so that's another thing that I talk about in the book, is being mindful. A lot of this is being aware, right? Being aware of yourself, being aware of how you're conducting yourself, being aware of how you influence the people around you, because it takes a team to move the ball. We don't dominate the game all on our own, right? So how are you showing up as a leader, as an employee? Are you bringing the right energy? Because as you know, someone that has a bad attitude, that can bring down the energy of the whole room or the floor really quickly. Whereas if someone is upbeat and positive, that can turn people's, mindsets or attitudes around too. So yeah, energy is so important. And that's whether it's in a physical space or also virtually too.
Absolutely. I think they're both really important to have positivity, moving the ball forward, getting, my phrase is get to work, right? That's my hashtag. So very similar to move the ball, slightly different. Single mom, entrepreneur, author, podcast writer, ex-military. Thank you for your service.
Thank you. I'm still serving, by the way, actually, in the National Guard.
Thank you so much. 5 kids. Right. I'm sure every day is just a breeze. Walk through it, no problems. How do you maintain that positive attitude with so many things going on? And I'm sure that, those 5 kids have brought some drama to your table, and it made it hard to, go on to the next thing and shed that negative feeling and then get to that positive mindset. What are some of the things that you do to make sure that you're staying positive in the workplace?
Yeah, great question. So first, it's again, being aware, like you need to be aware of, hey, things are not going the way I wanted them to go. And so first, breathe, just take a pause, right? Just breathe and relax. And the other thing that's important is to focus on, I work with a lot of pro athletes, mostly NFL, and something that they say a lot is control what you can control, right? So realize you can't always control the things around you and what's going on, but you can always control what you choose to do as a result of it. So things aren't going your way, kids are screaming, whatever, just breathe for one, but then also realize like, okay, well, here I'm taking a time out. That's also a chapter in the book, taking a time out to reset, refocus, recenter myself and figure out, okay, now where do I need to go? How do I continue to move forward and impact the things that I have control over? So what actions am I going to take? And being mindful about those things. So don't worry about the things that you can't have any influence over. Just focus on what you can do and sometimes we talked about pivoting and adjusting. You might have to adjust your plan for the day because of that, but just again, take the time out, recenter, refocus, think, okay, let's just say it's noon. As an example, I've got 5 more hours or 6 more hours in the workday. What are the things that I'm going to still get done today to say that this is a good day and to feel like, that I've dominated the day, that I've won the day, and tomorrow I'll do the things that I'm not able to. But just give yourself that grace. Like, it's okay. Things happen all the time. Life is going to push on us and challenge us and test us. And so you just have to be flexible and adapt and focus on what you can control.
Yeah. It's funny that you said control what you can control. Yesterday I was in a meeting, and it was very interesting because I didn't know how the meeting was going to go, right? And I found myself prior to the meeting, I cleaned the whiteboard really well. I made sure that everything on the table was really nice and lined up, and that the notebooks were next to the pens, and that the bottles of water were out perfect. And somebody said, they came to me and said, "Why are you doing this?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm controlling what I can control. I don't know how this meeting is going to go. So right now I'm just putting myself in the mindset of, if I can control it, I will. If I can't, it's okay. The outcome was going to be whatever it is." So, and those kinds of, and they're silly and they're probably a little OCD, but making sure that things are lined up properly and controlling the things that you can't control helps you a lot whenever you're going into situations that you don't really know the outcomes.
Right. One other thing that's helpful is when something isn't going your way or you don't get the outcome, it's reminding yourself of the good things that have happened that day or that week and coming back to, the positive things, right? It's so easy for us to harp on the negatives and what's not going right. Just reframe your perspective and look at the good things. And that helps you get through that stressful situation that you might be in at the present moment.
Absolutely. All of those things are great. So suit up, show up, move the ball. And I believe your premise is that if you suit up and you show up, that the ball will move.
But yes, if you suit up and you show up the right way, you will move the ball. The reason why I use that at the end of every podcast, I always say, until next time, make sure you suit up, you show up, and you move the ball. So it's a common theme, from a business standpoint, you want to be consistent with your brand, right? And so from a branding standpoint, when I was going to write this next book, so many people are used to seeing that phrase and how it ties into the movement. So I thought, you know what, logically, it's a great tie into this next book.
Wonderful. I think it's wonderful, Jen. And thank you so much for all the work that you do. If somebody's out there and they're watching this and like, man, I really like Jen. I like her energy. I don't want to work with her. At what point, or who is the right person that you work with that you can really help the most?
Yeah. So I work with people that they don't know how to clearly position and communicate their brand in a way that's going to separate them from the other competitors out there that are playing the career game with them. Because as you continue to grow in your career, we all have great backgrounds and expertises and value that we bring. So how do we package that brand in a way that's going to help us get that next career opportunity? Also, from a branding standpoint, I also work with a lot of people, a lot of business owners on how do I take my brand as a business or my products and continue to grow that and attract more clients, grow in the target markets that I'm looking to serve as well. So at its core, what I do is I'm a branding, positioning expert. I'm a strategy person. I'm not your content manager, so I'm not going to be posting your stuff for you. There's all kinds of people out there that can manage your social calendar. I'm really the strategy person before you get to that point.
Okay. And if they wanted to work with you or even just learn more about you, how could they learn more about you or get in contact with you?
Yeah, I have a website. It's called getinsidethehuddle.com. So www.getinsidethehuddle.com. Again, sports references is kind of a big part of who I am. If you want to just check out more of my content, you can listen to the Move the Ball podcast on all the major podcast platforms. We have a good cross section of guests. We've got a lot of NFL athletes that come on, not talking about X's and O's, but the business of being a pro athlete and managing their brands. Have very successful entrepreneurs coming on, talking about how they've built, $100 million plus businesses, Fortune 500 C-suite executives. So it's a lot of different topics all around business topics, career, leadership, and branding.
Wonderful. Jen, thank you so much for your time today. I've had a blast talking to you. Is there anything you would like to leave the audience with before we go?
Yeah, I guess I would just let people or challenge people to think about how are you showing up every single day? And are you showing up in a way to help you to move the ball? Remember that choice always sits with you, right? Every day we make choices from what we wear, what we eat, what time we wake up, what toothpaste we're going to use to brush our teeth. Like all those choices are things that we control. So make sure that you're showing up in a way that's really helping you to propel forward in the direction that you want to go and on the things that matter to you.
Wonderful. Thank you for your time today, Jen. I had so much fun learning about you and your business. I hope you have a great day.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to be on.
You too. Take care. Thanks for watching today's episode of Clicks and Bricks. Get to work.